The Cleveland Browns just hit the ignition switch on what might be the most scrutinized quarterback debut in franchise history. And yes, that's saying something. After decades of quarterback roulette, failed rebuilds, and names etched on the back of jerseys like a cursed scroll, the Browns have officially named rookie Shedeur Sanders their starting quarterback. The announcement came with the kind of electricity that only Cleveland football can generate. A chaotic mix of hope, anxiety, and nationwide side-eye. But make no mistake, if you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. This isn't just about a depth chart. This is about an entire franchise hitting the reset button. And with Sanders now officially under center, the spotlight has gone from bright to blinding. Mary Kay Cabot, the ever-present pulse of Browns insider reporting, wasted no time setting the tone. She called the move the start of something special. And for once, that didn't feel like empty optimism. Cabot's not one to jump the gun. So when she points to Sanders' combination of arm strength, composure, and leadership as a missing ingredient in Cleveland's decades-long quarterback curse, people take notice. And now, all eyes are on Sanders. This isn't your typical rookie start. This is Shedeur Sanders stepping into one of the most emotionally battered, hype-exhausted football cities in America and being told, fix this. Think about what that means. Since 1999, the Browns have thrown nearly 30 quarterbacks into fire, most of whom were either burned alive or faded into obscurity. Tim Couch, Brandon Weeden, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, all came in with some kind of promise. All eventually crashed into the weight of a franchise that couldn't get out of its own way. Now it's Shedeur's turn. And while he's got the same pressure, he might have something those other guys didn't. Clarity. From the moment he entered Browns camp, Shedeur showed he wasn't here for the developmental third-string storyline. His mechanics were tight, his timing sharp, and his leadership palpable. He wasn't the loudest guy in the room, but he was the one teammates gravitated toward. He controlled the huddle like he'd been doing it for years. Veterans respected it. Coaches noticed. And fans? Well, let's just say the bandwagon hasn't been this crowded since LeBron came back in 2014. And now, with the preseason opener against the Panthers looming, the stakes are real. Chris Broussard didn't hold back when weighing in on Sanders' elevation. For him, this isn't just a test. It's a line in the sand. This is where we find out if Shedeur is more than just potential, he said. It's not about practice buzz anymore. It's about game day execution. Translation? No more what-ifs. No more maybe next year. If Sanders is a guy, it starts now. But what sets this moment apart isn't just the weight of expectations. It's what's around him. Greg Jennings chimed in with a key point that cuts to the heart of the matter. Shedeur is not being asked to lift a broken team on his back. This isn't the 2016 Browns. He's walking into a team with weapons, real ones, receivers who can create separation, tight ends who can bail out broken plays, a running game that can ease pressure, and most importantly, a defense that can actually keep the game close. That kind of support, it's not just helpful, it's rare for a rookie QB. And that's why Jennings emphasized a no excuses clause. With this much talent around him, the Browns aren't just giving Shedeur a shot, they're giving the keys to a fully loaded vehicle. It's up to him to keep it on the road. Now, let's talk about this preseason game. It's just a warm-up on paper. But for Sanders, it's a defining moment. He's expected to play extended minutes against Carolina's first-team defense. That's not an accident. The coaching staff wants answers, and they want them fast. Is this guy ready to handle the pressure? Can he read a disguised blitz? Can he bounce back after a pick? Because let's be honest, at some point during this game, things will go sideways. He'll miss a throw, a receiver will run the wrong route, a linebacker will light him up. That's inevitable. What matters is how he responds. And if there's one thing Shedeur has proven over and over again, it's resilience. He's been tested before, from being doubted coming out of high school, to being labeled only good because of his dad, to falling in the draft to a spot that many experts are already calling criminally low. Sanders has heard it all, and each time he's answered the same way. On the field, That's where Mary Kay Cabot's prediction hits hardest. When she says, this could be the start of something special, she's not just talking about numbers. She's talking about culture, about a quarterback who doesn't fold under pressure, but thrives in it, about a player who's not interested in legacy, yet might create one anyway. The Browns, for the first time in a long time, seem to be making a decision not based on politics, contracts, or legacy buys, but on performance. They're choosing the guy who earned it, not the one with the flashiest resume. And that's a culture shift. But don't get it twisted. This move comes with risk. Joe Flacco is still in that locker room. And while he's not the long-term answer, he's still a respected voice. If Sanders struggles early, there will be calls to bring in the veteran. That's just how it works. Cleveland fans are loyal, but they're also impatient. The leash will be short. And then there's the elephant in the room, Jimmy Haslam. The Browns' owner has never been known for patience, subtlety, or letting his football people make all the decisions. His past meddling in quarterback situations has blown up more than once. If he starts chirping about reps or shifting focus to backup plans, it could disrupt the whole vibe, which makes Stefanski's position even more fragile. This is his move. He owns it. If Sanders succeeds, Stefanski becomes a coach who finally stabilized Cleveland's most unstable position. If he fails, the Wolves will be at the door. But right now, Stefanski isn't flinching. Reports say he was behind the push to start Shedeur, and that he's built the early offensive scheme to cater to Sanders' strengths. More shotgun formations, more quick reads, fewer rigid progressions. It's a system that favors instinct, and that's what Sanders brings in abundance. And here's the craziest part. The locker room is buying in. That might be the biggest win yet, because this isn't fan-driven frenzy or front office marketing push. The players, the ones whose careers depend on good quarterback play, want Shedeur under center. That tells you something. Football players don't get swept up in hype. They see the truth in drills. They know who can get them wins. And right now, they're rallying behind the rookie. Of course, this story is far from over. A good preseason performance doesn't lock in a legacy, but it does open the door. And what Shedeur does with that door, that's what we're all here to watch. So here we are, a rookie quarterback named starter for one of the most chaotic franchises in sports. A team with talent, a coach with pressure, an owner with a history of meddling, a city star for a hero, and a national media waiting to see if the Sanders experiment becomes the next Cinderella story or the latest Cleveland cautionary tale. This isn't just football. This is theater. There's something poetic about a rookie quarterback stepping into the center of chaos and refusing to flinch. When Shedeur Sanders lined up for his first reps as the Browns' starting quarterback, there wasn't a wide-eyed nervousness you might expect from a kid freshly thrown into the NFL spotlight. There wasn't the try not to mess up body language you see with most first-time starters. What there was, shockingly, was composure, as if he already knew he belonged there. That's what makes this entire saga so wild. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not this fast. Not in Cleveland. Not in the quarterback room crowded with veterans, contracts, egos, and expectations. But here we are, and it's not just fans who are surprised. People inside the Browns organization, coaches, assistants, even position players, have been quietly adjusting to a new reality. A few weeks ago, Sanders was being discussed as a project, a developmental player, maybe a solid backup if things broke right. But as training camp unfolded, the conversation shifted from if to when. Now it's how far. Shedeur's rise wasn't handed to him. It wasn't the result of a flashy PR push or legacy favoritism. It was a grind. Every day, he out-executed. He read defenses quicker. He adjusted protections at the line. He made throws that made DBs shake their heads in disbelief. And he didn't coast on talent. He earned every single snap. Veterans noticed. Fast. One telling moment came during a joint practice when Sanders threaded a perfect sideline ball between two safeties in a blitz look. After the play, a veteran corner walked over and told him that's a Sunday throw. Not a compliment you give lightly, especially not to a rookie. But here's where it gets more interesting. The trust wasn't just coming from players. Quietly, behind the scenes, position coaches began reshaping the offense around what Shedeur does best, Subtle tweaks, more movement, different pre-snap reads, a focus on tempo and spacing. They weren't just preparing a rookie for the league. They were preparing the league for the rookie. And yet, despite the groundswell of support, the looming pressure remains. What if it doesn't work? This isn't a rebuild situation. The Browns are not in wait-and-see mode. They're a team built to win now, with a defense that can suffocate and a supporting cast that can produce. The offensive line is solid. The receiving core is deep. The expectations are playoff level. And that's what makes this decision to go with Sanders so gutsy and so high stakes. Because if he struggles, the critics will be brutal. The calls to go back to a veteran, to play it safe, to stop experimenting, will be immediate and relentless. There is no long leash in Cleveland, not with this ownership, not with this fan base, not with this history. And yet, the flip side of that risk, if Shedeur delivers, even just flashes of it, he changes everything. Let's imagine that scenario. First drive of the preseason opener. The crowd's loud, the spotlight's burning, and Sanders calmly marches down the field, commanding the huddle, controlling the tempo, hitting passes in stride, maybe even takes off for a scramble or two, just enough to show he's got wheels. The sideline erupts. The players start believing. The media narrative shifts from "is this too soon?" to "did the Browns just find their guy?" In one quarter, the entire tone of the season could flip, and Shedeur knows that. That's why this moment feels so weighty, not just for him, but for the city. He's not just auditioning for a job. He's auditioning to be the face of a franchise that hasn't had a true face at quarterback since, what, Bernie Kosar? That's decades of scars, decades of bad decisions, of what-ifs, of hype videos that age like milk. And now you've got a rookie walking into that pressure cooker and saying, "Yeah, I'll take that challenge." It's bold, it's rare, and it's exactly what Cleveland needed. The dynamic within the quarterback room is also worth talking about. Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP, walking football encyclopedia and unbothered veteran, has handled this whole situation with calm professionalism. He hasn't thrown shade. He hasn't sulked. He's been the grown-up in the room. But make no mistake, he still wants that job. What makes this quarterback battle so unusual is that it isn't cutthroat. There's competition, yes, but there's also mentorship. Flacco sees something in Sanders. You can tell. At practice, they talk after plays. During film sessions, Flacco points things out. It's not forced. It's football. That mentorship matters. Because if Shedeur stumbles, it won't be into the dark. It'll be into a safety net. What's more complex is how the rest of the team's hierarchy responds to all this. General Manager Andrew Berry is likely feeling vindicated. He was reportedly one of Sanders' biggest believers during the draft process. He saw the upside, the maturity, the coachability. And now, all of that is playing out in real time. If Shedeur succeeds, Berry wins politically. He gets to say, "I saw this before anyone else." But the owner? That's more complicated. Jimmy Haslam has a track record of micromanaging, of pivoting mid-plan, of letting media narratives sway football decisions. So the question is, if Sanders has a bad outing or two, does Haslam flinch? Does he step in and call for the veteran to take over? Or does he trust the process? That uncertainty is the shadow looming over Sanders' debut. It's not just about football, it's about patience. And Cleveland hasn't always had that. The fan base, meanwhile, is cautiously euphoric. That's the only way to describe it. Browns fans have seen too much heartbreak to fully give it a hope, but they want to, badly. You can feel it, on forums, in bars, on local radio. They're rallying behind Shedeur, not just because of the name, not just because of the highlights, but because he represents something they haven't had in a while, belief. A quarterback they can grow with, build around, not a stopgap, not a controversy, a future. And as crazy as it sounds, even his doubters are starting to come around. Some of the early critiques, that he was only good because of his dad, that he crumbled under NFL pressure, that he was too reliant on college gimmicks.